Once again, welcome to Unity of Tucson. As I said before, I'm Dr. Jonathan Zenz, and I am the senior minister here. I like to have a good time. But we do have a purpose here at Unity of Tucson, and our purpose is to provide a safe, loving, and inclusive space where all people can explore the principles of the New Thought spiritual philosophy. And I believe that through that exploration, we can master spiritual understanding, we can find personal purpose, and also develop a spiritual path. And finding this philosophy for me and developing that spiritual path for me has allowed me to enhance the quality of my experience in life. And so, if that is something that you're interested in, then perhaps this will work for you. I do have a caveat, though, that I offer every week, and that is to say that you may not believe everything you hear today. And there may be things that butt up against the thoughts that you have. I may say something and you can say, I disagree, and that is actually a really good thing. I think that disagreement, I think that skepticism is the way that we engage in the conversation and allow ourselves to explore and expand and evolve even further. So if something does butt up against your belief system here today, my recommendation is to simply be willing to take a look at it, to say, there's an idea that perhaps doesn't work for me, or I don't think it works for me because I've been holding on to this idea. And then you get to make a choice. Does this idea continue to work better, or will this idea continue to work better for me in my life? You decide. I'm not here to tell you what to think, and I'm not here to tell you what to believe. That's entirely your choice. So it seems fitting to wear tie-dye on the final Sunday of the Summer of Love, when we've really been focused on music from the 60s for most of our services, and what a fun summer it has been, I think. We may have to do this every year. We'll see. All you need is love. And so it is. You know, we claim that that really is a spiritual truth. That all we really need is love, to recognize the love within ourselves, to allow that love to come into expression and flow forth from ourselves in cooperation and in communication and in interconnectedness. Interdependence is the flow and form of love in action. Love is not something to be owned. I think sometimes we think that we can acquire love, right? We cannot acquire love, we are love. And so the way that we think that we are acquiring love is by sharing our own inner sense of love with all and allowing that to be reflected back to us in the loving presence that we see in the faces of every single person we encounter. To think that we can acquire love means that love is in limited supply. It is not in limited supply. So there's nothing to acquire. There's only that which we can be. All you need is love. And all we ever can be is love, irrespective of our behaviors in the world. Because sometimes we act in ways that are not so loving. Even me. Right? Love is the frequency of divine alignment. I like to think of it that way. You know, and I think that we often get confused because we think of love oftentimes only in romantic terms, like this romantic idea of like the interconnectedness between two people. Well, love is so much more than that. Love, as it is defined in this philosophy, is the self-givingness of the infinite spirit. It is the givingness of infinite spirit to itself for the purposes of creation, that we are the outflow of love, and we are part of that inflow of love upon itself, and it is a great big ball of love and energy. And I love being a part of that. I love being a part of that. Love is the infinite signal of our GPS. What? Consider that. Love is the manner in which we emit. We emit our God presence self, our GPS. GPS is our God presence self. And there is no separation. Remember I said at the beginning that today was really about remembering who we are. That was really going to be the focus of today's message. There is no separation. There is only love. There is only light. There is only peace, power, beauty, joy, the infinite aspects of divinity flowing forth into expression by means of all creation, and we are, each and every one of us, part of that infinite wholeness. There can be no separation in the infinite. We are not separate from. We are not independent units that are going around trying to figure it out. We are all interconnected. We are connected points of divine intention. And that makes me feel really good because it informs me. It informs me. What does it inform me of? It informs me of a manner in which I can relate to everyone in my sphere. The manner in which I choose, and it is a choice, to see the face of God in all people. We are perfect ideas in the infinite consciousness, and ideas come into expression. There's a major shift in thinking. It's been unfolding. Well, it's been unfolding for at least the last 20 years that I've been in this movement. There's a major shift in thinking for many, even in this movement, where we think we have progressed so far beyond, and we have in many ways, so far beyond, antiquated ideas of what God is, of what religion is, what spirituality is. We like to stand up and say, oh, well, we've got some of this figured out, right? Well, I'm in a state of constantly figuring it out, so I don't stand up here and say I've got it all figured out, because I don't. Life is the unfoldment of figuring it out at all times. But there is a major shift that is really, I see, taking hold now. Why is this major shift happening? Is it really happening? Maybe, I don't know. What is he talking about? Well, I'll tell you, okay. So I was away last week. I don't know if you remember that. I was away last week. And where I was at Unity Village, and there was a retreat being held at Unity Village. It was the Discover Your Divinity retreat. It was based on the book Discover Your Divinity, A Modern Guide to Affirmative Prayer by Linda Martella-Whitsitt and Deanne Weir-Morency. And they were both the leaders of that retreat. I was there with Laura, and I was there with Sue, and there were actually quite a few people from Tucson, not just from this community, but there were people who showed up, and it was wonderful, and it was like, oh. Now here's the thing about that retreat. The whole point of that retreat and the exercises that were done were intended to adopt a recognition of an innate divine identity. The entire point of the retreat was the devotion to exercises that were intended to allow us to recognize our innate divine identity. What does that mean? It means releasing the notion of separation. Absolutely releasing the notion of separation from some infinite divine being, which we have probably, many of us, grown up with that idea that there's something out there. That thing out there is the thing that is right here, because there can be no separation. So, as I have studied in the New Thought movement, the works of all the New Thought mystics, Ernest Holmes and the Fillmores, and many others, far too many to recount here. You do see a development unfold over history. And in the beginning, there is this idea of God as something, because that's what was acceptable at the time, something out there. And there was a slow development towards God is within, right? We often hear God is within me, right? But what if the wholeness of God is you? What if you are the wholeness? What if the wholeness of you is God? That's what I'm trying to say. What if the wholeness of you is God? There's no aspect of your beingness that is not divine. Now, this is often met with some skepticism, and that's what we experienced at the retreat. There was skepticism expressed. Because even in unity, there are people who are saying, that's a step too far. There's resistance to that idea, and maybe even a little confusion. I think there was a lot of confusion. What are Linda and Deanne trying to tell us? We're God? That's what they're trying to tell us? What? And it touches on those historical aspects within each and every one of us, that whether we were raised in a religious ideology or not, we consider it blasphemy. Well, we don't teach blasphemy in unity. core fundamental principle we teach is this: God is. That's it. God is. And everything that we perceive in existence is God. So those notions from the past are very strong, and we get to this fighting point, right? These past ideas: God is the spirit within, God is something still out there, something unattainable, and only attainable by working really hard at it. I'm over the work. But I am not over the practice. I welcome the practice, a constant daily practice of inviting a recognition of the true embodiment that God is the wholeness that I am. The wholeness of me is God. There was a Q&A as part of the retreat that happened, and again, some of this resistance in people was expressing itself. And one of the people basically had a question, I'm paraphrasing the question. They said this: Is it, I am God? Is that what you're trying to get us to all say? Because that feels like a step too far, was their idea. And there are differences of opinion out there, because Linda and Deanne have not gotten to that point. Whereas, you know me, I've been telling y'all are God for more than 5 years now. You are God. Now, am I saying you are the allness of God? No, but the wholeness of you is God. I keep saying it over and over and over. And if we can accept that divine identity, how magnificent our lives become. I can say it, but I say I am God with the recognition that if I know the truth of my being, I must understand that of all creation, and it becomes the great equalizer in the experience of life. There can be no separation. And we are all equal in our divine identity. So I can say it, but I don't intend it to be a phrase that sets me apart. In fact, I think it is a phrase that allows me to deepen into my sense of interconnectedness, of interdependence. And Jesus said it. He said, the Father and I are one. It's antiquated language, but he was saying the same thing. The Father and I are one. The infinite creative source of all that is and I are one. And he was saying this not to set himself apart, but to say we must all adopt this idea. God is infinite. And if God is infinite, then we cannot be separate from, because then God would be finite and we would be finite. Charles Fillmore said it. And I brought this quote up at the retreat. It's one of my favorites. I know you've heard me say it before, but I'm going to keep saying it because I love it. This is from an unpublished talk transcript that Charles Fillmore gave in the 1930s. Almost 100 years ago, he said this. He said, we speak to God in the third person and then in the second person. In our present development, we speak to God in the second person. So he's saying, right now, we speak to God as though God is you. God is there, something. God is something separate from, but I can speak to God, right? He goes on to say this, but the time is coming when we shall speak of God in the first person, for we shall displace all separation. He said it 90 years ago. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? I went to Linda and Deanna at the end. I said, the entire breadth of my ministry, I've been officially a minister now for 15 years, and the breadth of my ministry has been focused on the displacement of all consciousness of separation, because I believe that is how I have healed the experience of my life. That is how I have chosen to express and be. To understand the notion that the wholeness of me is divine, the wholeness of each and every one of us is divine. And I'm going to keep shouting it to the rooftops until I fall over because I've passed out from shouting it too much. The invitation is this: let us move away from God is above me. I think we've gone past that. Have we gone past that? Yeah, thank goodness. God is not above me. God is not with me. God is not within me. It isn't. God is as me. God is as me. God is as you. God is as all that is. Let us remember who we are. And when we remember who we are, those other aspects of our mission statement, they get real easy. Because the mastery of knowing our divine identity means that in the spiritual, there is nothing to forgive because we are the expression of love only. And so we do not perceive limitation any longer. That's a hard one for a lot of people to think, oh, every week he comes in and he says, forgive everything. We got to forgive everything. Yes. But mastering spiritual understanding is opening up to the recognition that there was nothing that needed forgiveness in the first place. Interdependence, this evolution to understanding our interdependence, is also why I have said that the fifth kingdom of consciousness that we are hurtling towards collectively, I think, is no longer an as-me consciousness, that's the fourth kingdom of consciousness, but an as-we consciousness. That this evolution of interdependence means that we can step aside from thinking that we are solitary and recognize that we are all in relationship to each other. We are in a relational, mirrored, refined experience, and we are supported absolutely through our interconnectedness and community. This week at Unity Village, this past week at Unity Village, was an opportunity to embody relationship through sacred community and open-hearted intention. And boy, I'll tell you, it was an invitation to get truly, truly connected to that GPS, that God presence self. And allowing our God presence self to be fully expressed means that we are meant to find direction in relationship to where we are, and direction can be uncovered in alignment with others in love and truth. Taking a breath into that idea. Our God presence self is an invitation. It's an invitation to align with all that is, each and every one of us, in love and truth. This becomes a call to do this as well, to do what we can with all that we have right where we are. Thank you, Theodore Roosevelt, for that, inviting us to do all that we can with all that we have right where we are. To know our divine identity is also to know that we are invited to let the doingness be motivated by an inner realization of love as our beingness, because love is a synonym for God. And so our doingness must become the outflow of our beingness. This level of embodiment invites us to a different approach in our prayer work, and that was really the crux of this entire Discover Your Divinity retreat. Because remember, the title of the book is Discover Your Divinity, a modern guide to affirmative prayer. And adopting the consciousness of being divine fundamentally changes prayer work from a beseeching to something out there to a declaration of an inner truth that is realized in the expression of our lives. That's the whole point and purpose of prayer in the manner we teach it in New Thought. We're not asking for anything. Prayer is a broadcast of I am consciousness. And the infinite microphone in that broadcast is always hot. It's always on. You know, it's funny because each week I put on a microphone. I wear a microphone. It gets put on usually oftentimes before the music rehearsal in the morning. So I've got this microphone on for a considerable amount of time. And I trust that the sound engineers in the back do not have it on at inappropriate times. It's always on, but are they broadcasting? Now, here's the thing about the infinite microphone. The infinite microphone is always hot. The divine source and supply, the divine creative source, the divine creative energy that is flowing forth into expression is always listening to our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings. It is always hot. And what we are expressing is the infinite beingness, whether we have an awareness of what we are thinking or believing or feeling or not. that which we express in that state of beingness becomes our lived experience. Our words, our thoughts, our beliefs and feelings are positioning tools, and they can align us or put us on a detour. Now, oftentimes those detours come along because, I have not been aware of what I've been thinking, believing, feeling, or saying. And so the work in New Thought is to address the thoughts, the beliefs, the feelings, and how they express through our language. We are the creators of our experience. We're not manipulating the circumstances, but we are creating our relationship to everything that is. And the quality of our lives is flowing forth based on that which is our GPS. We're not in this alone. We're not in this alone because we also adopt aspects of that GPS collectively. It's called the collective consciousness or the subjective consensus, or all the jargon terms we use to try to talk about the infinite consciousness that we are all contributing to and we are all pulling from. So are we going to be contributors to that collective consciousness from a consciousness of collective emergence of the divine aspect of being within each and every one of us, flowing forth as each and every one of us? That God-present self, that GPS, isn't just internal, it is collaborative. It is a shared creative energy. And recognizing we are in this thing called life together allows others to help us navigate, rooted in the consciousness of love. Love is all you need, then becomes literal, because love is how we locate our absolute sense of self, not just the relative, limited sense of self. And it goes beyond the walls of any building. Let me ask you, is it easy to feel that God consciousness, that God-loving energy when you're here at Unity of Tucson? Because I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of people say, I walk onto the campus and it's just like the energy is just different. I'm like, okay, great. Carry that energy with you in expression into the rest of the city, or the rest of the state, or the rest of the country, the rest of the world. Let yourself become a beacon of the energy that you are feeling when you are here. You are empowered to do that. When I originally thought of the title of this message, GPS, of course I thought of, global positioning system, which we all have in our cars, right? And I originally thought, well, maybe the talk is going to be about where do we experience God? Where do we experience God? We experience God everywhere all the time. Whether we call it good or we call it bad, it is a God experience. All of it. The political sphere is a God experience right now. Every interaction you have with someone is a God experience. And what are you contributing to that experience as an expression of the divine? Nature, yes, that's easy to understand as a God experience, isn't it? Art, for me, art is absolutely a way that I understand the God experience. Through study, through meditation, through activism, yes, all expressions of God experience. But I do think that the most consistent way we experience God is in relationship to one another. Every time I stand near those doors on a Sunday morning and I give hugs, I receive hugs. You know what I love about hugs? If you're giving a hug, you're also receiving a hug. But that shared experience of communion is a God experience, and I never take that for granted. To know and honor who I am, and to know and honor who you are, and know that they are of the same source, is a profound experience of divinity. And that is what is meant. That is what is meant in that term, namaste. And this must be true for all. No exceptions. That's the one people don't want to hear. No exceptions. Every single person on this earth is an expression of the divine. The encouragement is to remove any idea of the truth of a person's being from their behavior, because their behavior may not match the truth of their being. I was reading a book recently. You'll probably be shocked to know that I'm reading a book that is a German man's discussion about his time walking the Camino de Santiago. Go figure, I'm reading another book about the Camino. He said this because he's going through this discovery of divinity through his experience. And he said, God is a movie, a film, right? And the church, for many, is the theater where we experience God. He goes on to say this: a dilapidated theater, though, does not diminish the quality of the film, only the experience of it, and only if we allow it. So let go of the notion that God has to be anything other than the magnificence within your heart. When we embody our divine identity, when we live in loving relationship with others, when we align that inner GPS that guides us to purpose, presence, and powerful interdependence, then I think we've got it. And that's my message today. Peace and blessings. You're magnificent. If you're new to our community, I offer a home practice every week. It is a way that I invite you to take what has been offered in the message and put it to use in your life. Because if this spiritual stuff is not practical in life, then what's the point? So this is my encouragement to you this week. Ask daily this: where would love have me go, and what would love have me do today? Let that be a question you allow yourself to ask every single day this week. Then act on one loving impulse each day. Actually, at least one. You can act on more than one, but at least one. Act on at least one loving impulse each day, no matter how great or small you think it may be. And take notice of how it aligns you with your divine path and presence. That's the homework, the home practice, the home loving, wonderful expression of play. That's what it's all about.